Got to say, we're having a few laughs about our editor, James, who put that together with the little bits and pieces with Elise. It's quite a funny segment, and although it may not have come across that way, I've got to tell you, when you are an agent and you hear those stories, it is so close to the truth that it is actually quite funny. Now, getting to some serious stuff, and for those of you that own a mortgage and are lucky enough to be loved by the bank because you owe them so much money, there are a lot of things that you can learn about money. It's a commodity just like buying a house. Buying a mortgage is almost exactly the same thing. You can save a lot of money and a lot of grief if you get the right mortgage. Get the wrong one, it can be untidy and expensive. So in the studio here today for the first time is Tony Stapleton. Tony is Funding Options Loan Manager, and welcome to the show, Toby.
Thanks, Anthony. Good to be here.
Now, we've had quite a number of money people with us on the show, but let's get a bit of background. So you look pretty young. How old are you? You're married, kids, what's the background, and how long have you been in finance?
Right, well, I'm a well-aged 34-year-old.
You are?
Unmarried at this stage, but with my partner Jodie. No kids. Been in finance now for over 10 years, but specifically in mortgage broking in that industry for about 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Funding Options, where does the name come from?
Well, it's quite simple really. Funding options is just a case of providing options to the clients. So we'll look at their finance situation and then give them the best option to go forward. And if they want to take that advice, that's fine. But yeah, it's all about providing options.
So behind Funding Options, is it a Mickey Mouse little show, or where does the money come from?
No, very serious. We're licensed mortgage brokers. So therefore we have access to over 30 lenders and hundreds of loan products. So we'll always look at the best option for the client and deal with that bank. We've got accreditations with all the major banks, as I said. We deal with the best bank, come up with the best option, whether that be their existing bank or a new one. We'll have a look at them all.
Now, Toby, I know that we've got a bit of an affiliation with each other because we're finding that we're losing contracts where finance falls over. How do you go and how do you assist a vendor and a purchaser to keep it all together? What are the key things that you do in every day in your life that helps these people come together?
Well, I suppose it's all really experience. So you see, no two deals are the same generally, but you do have quite similar type situations, and so therefore we know which bank's better at doing which sort of situations, and sometimes there's a need for a bridging finance or a subject to sale or all those sorts of things, and we know how to match up best that situation to the particular lender. And quite often with a property settlement, we've got a short space of time, so clients are looking to have that settled quickly, so we need to jump in quickly, make sure that we look at all options and get that in place for them.
Now, Toby, why wouldn't you go directly to a bank? Why would you come to a broker?
Well, it's quite simple. A broker, it's no obligation, no fee. We get paid our commission by the banks.
Okay.
So rather than exhausting yourself going from bank to bank to bank and then coming back and having to compare everything, why not use a mortgage broker who has finance experience and is licensed and can do that on your behalf, and quite often the know-how to go in and actually deal further with those banks and negotiate even better rates and fees.
Now, one of the things that we have noticed is clients will go buy a property, subject to finance, go to the bank, and nowadays, quite often, they're running into trouble. If that were to happen with you, what do you do? Do you try and source it elsewhere? What happens?
Yeah, well, again, look at the situation, and firstly, we can exhaust that possibility they were looking at that time, but there are also many alternatives that we would need to look at straight away, because again, there's no messing around. But one thing I would always suggest is that we chat to clients early and look at a pre-approval whereby they can have all their finance in order and basically go on and look for properties there and sort of have peace of mind that they've got their finance pretty much in order.
Now, let's say you run into someone who's pretty organised, they already have a relationship with the bank. What value can you add? Do you assess the loan? Do you have any terminology of something that, do you look at it and say, well, that's not your best case for you, or how does it work?
Well, definitely, because quite often they'll go to one particular bank, they'll get the answer they want, but behind the scenes there, whether that's the best deal that they could be seeking, whether it be rates or fees or structure, they probably won't know. So that's where it's best to give me a call. And at Funding Options, what we can do is have a look further and make sure that that deal you've got with Bank A meets all your criteria, because there could be something with Bank B that is a whole lot better. You just don't know about.
What can you give us an example? What's the
even things like you might have a an approval sitting there with a standard variable rate where you can get a discounted rate with another lender, saving yourself thousands of dollars a year. Those sort of things. Or it may be that a bank's said that they'll lend you a certain amount, whereby we could go to another bank and they'll lend you a bit more, so your amount of deposit you need to put in could be less.
And does it vary with the insurers, like where you're borrowing a lot of money? Where does it kick in that you're up for mortgage insurance?
80% is your level, so anything 80% and below, there is a whole lot more choice. Above 80%, we're looking at mortgage insurance, which does restrict it a bit further. But again, some banks are better than others at that space, so and very important above there because these days property prices are quite high, so to come up with a 20% deposit is quite difficult. So a lot of loans are mortgage insured.
Now, when in the process of buying a property, do you like to see people, when they are just contemplating it, when they're out looking, when they've secured a purchase, or when from your point of view, is the ideal time for a purchaser or a vendor to actually talk to you?
Early as possible, really.
So before they start the process?
Hopefully, yeah, that'd be best. There's probably nothing worse than having less than a week to have a finance approval. But for a buyer, early as possible. As soon as you start thinking about property, get your finance in order first. For a vendor, again, probably before you even go through the sales process, because you need to know your next step. So early as possible.
Okay, so if someone rings you, do you feel like you're getting mucked around if they've already been to a bank and got a loan approved? Or do people go to 2 or 3 brokers or 2 or 3 banks? What's the common situation and what, in your world, is considered okay?
Often that is the case, but you can understand where people these days do like to do their own research. So that's fine, and if they do have a good deal in place with their existing bank, I'll just let them know that that's the way they should go. But I'd try and provide some comfort that I'm there to give you the highest possible service and look for all your options. But we do get that sometimes, and I think it's just a fact of life that people do have a look around themselves.
So do you get a situation where the client might go to the bank, and then if they came back to you, even though you're paid by the bank, that they actually end up paying more?
Not at all, no.
So that's not
a cost at all to the client, no.
Okay.
So the bank essentially pays the mortgage broker the commission. So for a client, there's no additional cost. So you're essentially getting your own private personal finance manager without having to deal with the bank, go into a branch and all that sort of thing.
And just quickly, how do people get in contact with you? And presumably there's no obligation?
No obligation, happy just to have a chat, no fee. You can call the office number on 8366 0822, which will divert through to my mobile number.
Okay.
Or you can email me at toby@fundingoptions.com.au or look at the website, fundingoptions.com.au.
We'll come back with some questions later in the show, but that's been great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. And now let's go and look at some sold properties, which is the most exciting part of this business. Let's go to Going, Going, Gone.